everyone, welcome to another Reil review. Today we'll be looking at Ark Nova. I'm Bryant.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Matt. So let's get into it.
Alright, so before we get into any in-depth looks at this, as an overview, Tim, how often or when would you see this game hitting the table for you?
For me, it comes out a lot. My partner really likes this game. I like this game a lot. One of the things that is a real appeal for this in terms of a game that hits the table a lot is this game is very fun to play solo. It is a bit of setup, but there's so many cards, and what the idea is that you make an attempt, you try and reach the end conditions, and then you just can draw as many cards. So the subsequent setups for the solo games are very easy, so you can kind of do a couple of hours of solo board gaming. I know a lot of people aren't really into solo board gaming, but I find it very relaxing. So for me, this is a game I get out about, I think, once a week, actually. It's quite a bit.
But I think part of that too is you are very much like you're a big fan of this game.
I
right?
just like
this is one of your favorite games, so you're almost like, I don't want to say like you're forcing it out, but you do ask to play it a lot, right?
I ask to play it every chance that there is.
So for myself, I'm not a solo board game player. I'll pretty much never play a board game solo. I would see this to my table less often because there is a little bit to set up to it. This is going to be like that one game in the night kind of thing. Like if you're setting up for a games night, this is going to be the one game that you play that night. It's going to take you a couple hours to play, right? So you gotta kind of know what you're getting into. Also, I can see a lot of decisions have to be made during this game. So for newer players, this can be a little bit of a step up, right? I wouldn't consider it an introductory game by any stretch.
Absolutely not. No, there's even for a pretty seasoned player, there's a pretty sizable wall of concepts and strategies and this is my copy of the game, and it was only recently that I realized that there was a bunch of rules interactions that I didn't understand after playing dozens of games. Only to lend it to someone who was like, well, I think it works like that. And I was like, no. And then going back to the rules book, I'm like, no, I was quite wrong.
Yeah.
So, even for a pretty seasoned player, there is a lot here. Now, for me, like, it's a hit because I like the theme. I really like just taking the game actions. Like because the thematic hits for me, I just love, the idea of, like, my panda's going in my zoo. It just tickles me in the right spot.
Yeah. So Bryant,
yes.
What about you? When would you get this to the table?
I think for me, I kind of agree with you. This would be something like a dedicated game night, and I would say I'd be pulling this out if I knew I was playing with people that were into Euros. So I think I was talking before we started playing that it's kind of reminiscent of like a cross between like Wingspan and Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing with groups of people that I know are into that sort of game, that's when I would bring this out. Obviously, or if I knew Tim was coming over, it would be like, let's do an Ark Nova.
Tim would definitely play this.
Yeah.
If you ever brought this out. So
but
if you want to play this game, just invite Tim.
It's too long for a filler game, though. So and again, it's too complicated. I'm not going to be playing this with my family probably.
But I think if you had a group of people who've played this game like 4 times each, I think the game can really go quickly because your turns can.
Even for me, because this was my first time playing it, so the first few turns were a little challenging. But I feel like by the end, I was pretty much into the swing of how things work.
I really noticed that. Like once. Like the last 40 minutes of the game were quite quick. Like it was go, and the first bit was a lot of like.
But even then, you're saying the last 40 minutes of the game.
Exactly. For some people, that's already 2 games.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of, and you kind of talked about this already, but the theme or immersion of the game, how did that feel for you?
It feels really good. I think the art style really fits with this game. I don't know that this art style would necessarily work with other games, but this kind of like, you had mentioned it earlier and I thought it was a really good point, which is, just because to me this is, emblematic of like having played or like read nature magazines like National Geographic. So I want the animals to look a little bit more photorealistic or like the pages in the magazines.
Yes.
To me that they're evocative of a time in my life as a child, like going through encyclopedia books or picture books about animals. Like that's the feeling that I get. So maybe that's what the callback is. Sometimes, like I think from a thematic point, I don't really understand some of the sponsor cards specifically, but definitely every animal card is like a hit. My complaint from having played it like a lot is I often find myself asking, like, what about, like, the animals I really like? Like, to me, it's like, where's the otters? There's other, like, kind of really iconic animals that, to me, are like,
They just don't exist.
They just aren't in the game.
Well,
and I know that there are
they got set up for expansions at some point, right?
but that would be, like, one area where it's, like, just, there's some animals I really want. Where's my snow leopard?
Yeah.
Where's my hedgehog?
Yeah, I think the theme is here, right? It's definitely here. There's a lot of number crunching in the game. At some point in time, it just all depends on do I have the money for the card? Do I have the requirement for the card? But even when you look at the requirements, it's like you need to have an Africa tag to build some of the bigger Africa based creatures, right, or animals, right? And I really enjoy the actions that they've done, how they've tried to work some theme into the actions as well. It's like you're doing a build action, so this is going to build on your building. You're doing a get animals action. It's like, as a zoo owner, like that would be like, I'm not a zoo owner, but that would be my understanding, is like I have to build a pen before I can go find an animal, and I need sponsors so that it's cheaper to build my animals and that I can actually do some stuff. So I think the theme actually does come through with that a little bit. The one that probably falls flat on the theme is like the cards and the break action.
Yeah.
It's like, we're just basically progressing a mechanism to get you income, and you have to get cards somehow into your hand, right?
Yeah. That's a good point, and I agree. It's for a very crunchy, math-heavy sort of. When I say math, I don't mean we're adding and subtracting a lot, but it's mechanically kind of a complex game. But it feels like the veneer is pasted on very, very well. So of course, obviously, a bear needs a larger enclosure than a pair.
Yeah, and I know that myself as a player, I gravitate more to games with like, efficient mechanisms, or that the mechanisms feel good. Like, I'm much more of a mechanical gamer than I am.
The game
feels much more.
But for me, because I'm kind of the other end. I'm a theme player, and so I do notice like some games mechanically are very sound, but I feel like you could put any theme and it wouldn't change a thing. This, it makes sense to me. Like, this is a zoo game.
The theme does make sense here.
The kiosks give you more money. That makes sense. The pavilions provide more appeal. That makes sense. The size of the enclosures, the types of animals that can go in them, all that makes sense to the theme. So I think that was balanced out really, really well. I would say the theme's on the higher side for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the components of the game. So that'd be artwork, quality of the pieces. Where does this lie for you?
Probably on the mid upper range. Like, it's a reasonable price tag for a game that you'd be buying retail. And I think that I like that these components are wood. The little polyominoes, they're fine. I think maybe I'd like a little bit better art. The art is a little bit flat to me on some of the actual tiles themselves, or maybe the kiosks and the pavilions I find don't really necessarily match with the other themes on the board.
I think having the kiosks and the pavilions stick out as just little graphical artwork instead of the nice design is actually helpful when you're dealing with the mechanics of them, because your kiosks are the only things that are actually gaining you income during. So it's easier to spot them out because they are a vastly different color and a vastly different art style. And
I'm just throwing this out here. I do have a 3D printer, and if we really wanted to commit to this, I could make actual
How much do you want?
I don't know. I'd have to look at how. This would be a lot of resin.
He's down for it, right?
It would probably take a long time.
Name your price. Name your price. Name your time.
I could certainly do it. Then you'd have a full 3D board.
Yeah, it is. For myself, this is definitely a game that getting some aftermarket kimonos on Etsy is definitely something I've looked at. It's a fairly new game, so I'm kind of waiting. It's not like Terraforming Mars, which has been out for a couple of years.
I've seen your Terraforming Mars copy. It's pretty blinged out. So
but yeah, I do really like the card art because it's super obvious what the animal is, which is really helpful, because sometimes you have to be thinking about, do I have enough monkeys? Do I have enough birds? Do I have enough predators? And I find it's pretty that ties into the mechanism of the game. It's like, yes, that's a bird.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a monkey. Because I actually
that looks like a bird. That looks like a tiger.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think that you could get kind of lost in on that if you weren't focused on those features of the animals. But I do find that that's easier, so it can be helpful for sort of organizing your hand and your tableau. It is it's a very peak Euro game, so your hand management is important. So having a lot of these icons, the way that the icons are organized in the card, that's really good. I think that for the player who is introduced to this, I think it's very obvious. This is what is required. This is what it gives you. This is its cost. All the requirements on the card are, I feel, very straightforward and easy to understand.
Yeah.
And they kind of have done a good use of the card space. Yeah.
Card layout is good. Their use of colors on the card is good as well.
Mhm.
You'll notice that like the income phase actions all have the same pink kind of outside to them. The end game all has the same brown to it, right? Like that kind of stuff is good as long as you're not too colorblind to be able to see it.
Yeah.
I would say across all components of the game, they are good, but there are probably some places they could have improved.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong with them. Absolutely, like the cards are thick quality, like that's good.
Yeah, the punch outs are thick enough.
The punch outs are great. The wood cubes are fine, right? Like there's nothing wrong with any of the components on it. It's not like there was a component here that I was just like, oh really? They went with this, right?
Yeah.
But like a couple of things they could have done is like obviously you can get like metal coin upgrades for the money, which would have a better feel to the component, right? I think the coffee cup for the break thing could have been a little bit more stylized. It looks kind of like a big wooden block, right? But
I didn't realize that's what it was.
That's what it is.
yeah, there you go, right? So that's a coffee cup, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta move it out from you block,
yeah.
right? That guy's a little.
I didn't realize that's what it was supposed to be. So yeah, I tend to agree that the components are they're serviceable. They're decent quality. They're not going to stand out. You're not going to walk by the game and be like, oh wow, who made that? And we were having this discussion before, as Tim had already mentioned. The photography, I would say, normally in a board game, is kind of detracts from the artistic quality.
Type of board
but this
game
is the
you can
type of
use
board game you can do
photography
that.
for.
And I actually
Exactly
prefer
the type.
because when I was a child, I was really into animals. I collected like hundreds of National Geographic cards that talked all about the animals. It's very reminiscent to those cards that I used to have growing up. I think somebody who walks by and loves animals, obviously that's going to be the draw. Is the pictures of all the animals. And otherwise, as you guys were saying, the parts are serviceable. They're easy to read. They're easy to understand. They do their job.
One kind of almost miss, I would say, is actually the name and the cover, because like the cover art doesn't look like a zoo builder to me, and I never would have guessed that this was this type of game just based on the cover.
Well,
and like calling it like Ark Nova.
Yeah, you think like you're saving animals from Earth.
Exactly, right? It's like I don't see like zoo builder from it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway,
although that's not a bad idea for a game.
What's that? Saving
the Earth's gonna blow up. You have to save animals.
Yeah.
Okay, patented.
So you're building the next Ark, and it's the Ark Nova to bring your animals to space.
Yeah, you have like a special ship that you built to get the animals off, so you can recolonize. Okay. Anyways,
coming
an idea for somebody.
2025.
All right. So next we are at the mechanics.
Yeah.
Are there any mechanics that stood out to you, or anything you would change regarding the game mechanics?
What's your favorite and least favorite?
Favorite and least favorite game mechanic.
My least favorite is definitely. You don't have a lot of agency over when the break takes place unless you're the one taking the break.
Oh, I didn't do that to you every time.
And that can feel a little bit bad. Now, it wasn't that bad in this game, but that can be difficult when you have kind of a plan. You want to do these things, and someone takes you to the break. You just don't.
Oh, that actually happened to me this game.
And it did happen to you, that can. I think that's probably the zone of this game that is like the most swingy.
Yeah.
Is someone clipped you on a couple of cards. You've got a discard down. You weren't able to get a couple of animals out, so therefore like you are shorter on your income step. I think that's a little bit difficult. It almost, and I don't know if it would be better. It almost feels like what if like everybody plays out the break trigger and like it triggers the round ending. Everybody takes it to the end of the round. I don't know.
That's interesting. I actually like the break mechanic.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit of that player interaction, and it is something that, like you do have to plan around, right?
Yeah.
Like I was sitting here a couple of times and I'm like, oh, I really need to draw more cards, but if I draw cards, somebody's going to break, and I'm going to lose those cards, so I can't do my draw cards action. So I'm going to do something else right now. And there were other times too where I see that Tim has just drawn 4 cards, and I'm like, oh, you've just gone past your hand limit. Great time for me to break. I was already considering it, so I'm gonna do it to limit his actions.
So maybe it feels a little stark to me because the game is very very shy on high player interaction. It does a lot of times feel like I'm just kind of here, and it's just we're parallel racing, building what I'm doing. I'm building what I'm just not worried about what Bryant's doing. I'm only ever really worried about it because we have this communal display. And I might pay a little bit of attention of what kind of animals other people are playing, so I don't want to necessarily be fighting over the same Like I knew that Matt wanted monkeys early on, so I'm just gonna stay away.
Well, there's kind of two schools of thought about it,
Yeah.
right? You can either stay away from them so that you know that you're not getting your strategy hurt, but you can also do a little bit of hate crafting in this game, right? Like there was a couple of times where it's like, oh, I saw a card that was really good for Brian. It's like, well, do I take this card just so that Brian?
But you didn't.
Can't
That was
hand
nice
it?
of you.
Yeah,
But
I didn't, and then
you poisoned me with a snake, though, which is another. Which is another thing you can do to each other, apparently.
And so some of that, because the game is so short on the especially negative player interactions.
Yeah.
When they do come out, it does feel like, whoa.
Yeah. Because it is very Euro-y until you get poisoned by a snake.
Yeah.
And I think from my favorite is the, because other games have this kind of like rotating action selection mechanic, but I really love the inclusion of these X tokens and the idea that you can go way over, so you can actually kind of like really bulk up a turn. Like you could build at level 8 or level 9 and just get a whole bunch of things done as efficiently as possible.
Yep.
I think when you first pick up this game, you might not really clue into how powerful these X tokens are, but they're a great resource. I really like how you can burn an action to get more of those to really optimize your turns. But the action selection feels really fantastic. I really love the choice, because I've played this game enough times that I have left one of my upgrades behind. In like I've had that experience at least once. Several for most of them, and they never really feel like, oh, you always have to get build, or you always have to upgrade animals. Like you can definitely leave some behind, and it's fine.
Oh, you
and
mean like flipping cards
flipping,
over kind of thing? Yeah.
And it always feels bad to not upgrade them, and it is a bit of a choice, but it's never like, oh, I'm completely, like, if I wasn't able to upgrade this, I can't win.
Yeah, that's true. You can definitely choose which one to not upgrade in the game.
Yeah.
And actually, the way that my deck was working, I probably could have gotten away with not upgrading animals. I'm happy that I did.
Yeah.
Because it definitely let me get a few more benefits. But like the first one that I upgraded was cards.
Yes.
And that was just so that I had more choice on the cards. And actually, I'm going to spill over into my my least favorite mechanism of this game is this deck of cards. I don't like games that have this type of a deck that you have to choose from, because I find it so hard to actually like commit to a strategy in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, I'm gonna guess, hundreds of cards in this deck, and being able to find, so an example of the game that we just played is my first animal was a petting zoo animal. Petting zoo animals are better if you have 3 of them.
Yeah.
I found my second petting zoo animal on the second last turn of the game, and my third on like the last turn of the game, right? And that actually ended up winning me the game. So I got very lucky to actually find my last 2 petting zoo animals. But I went through this entire deck of cards looking for them. And I started the game looking for them and could not find them. I don't like that experience. That's my biggest probably negative about this game is I personally don't like this deck of cards. It hits me in Wingspan as well, and it hits me in Terraforming Mars. And those are the 3 games that have this similar kind of mechanic, and I'm not a fan of it. I understand its place. It does give you the randomness. This is at least helpful.
Yeah, this is very helpful.
And I do find that this changes enough that it helps. It helps a lot with this mechanic.
I would almost want to try and find a way to incorporate this into a game like Terraforming Mars, because you're so like dependent on the icons that show up on the cards, and this really just lets you see it's rotating. Other people are taking it. Like this just lets you see more cards, and it lets you get to the ones that you really need to make your strategy work.
So that aspect of it does help mitigate it, but this is still my least favorite component of the game, is just this massive deck of cards. I'd be very hesitant on an expansion for Ark Nova if all it's doing is adding more creature cards to this deck. If this deck gets bigger, I'm like, it's the same feel I have for Wingspan. I almost won't play it with an expansion just because it's just adding more birds, and it's like,
or at least a mechanism to search the decks or something.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think that would be the thing that would.
Like you could add something up here as one of the things you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite mechanic for this game, though, and something I think that does really well, is actually this action selection mechanism. This is a little bit unique for me. I don't know a lot of games offhand that do this style of action where your actions get better the less you use them, kind of thing. It's like, so if I don't take the animals action, it's going to keep moving up my track until, it's now the best action, right?
Yeah.
But like Tim says, there's ways to mitigate it. My last 2 turns on the game we played was an animals action at level 5, and then an animals action at level 3 with using 2 of the X tokens that I had saved up, right? And that was a big swing in my appeal of my zoo, right?
Yeah.
So this action selection mechanism is really cool because you're kind of like incentivized to do a different action every time, but you don't have to do a different action every time, and I like that.
Okay. I think for me, my favorite mechanic is actually the board itself. I love putting
Like
the
Tetris.
pieces together. Yes, the Tetris of building the zoo was a lot of fun. Even strategizing little things like which rewards do I want to try to pick up. I really enjoy that. And there's a few different games that do that.
Yeah.
But this
is not.
I think this is the upper end of that mechanic, though.
Yeah, I think this is the upper end, especially because there's so many different things that you can put into your board.
Yeah. Now, my least favorite mechanic was the poisonous snake. Not only because it ruined like 3 turns for me, but like
This one card.
it's like, how did it bite me? Like, I didn't go to his zoo, and it would be okay if I could sick my animals on your zoo, and you could sick my animals on my zoo, which is maybe another board game we could
That's
do.
a different expansion.
Yeah,
That's a different. Yeah.
Let the bears out.
Ark Nova. Let
If
the
I could
bears
have sent
out.
my bears into his zoo to maul his
Jurassic
clients,
Ark Nova.
fantastic.
Yeah,
But it's just so weird because no other animals do anything like that.
I also pilfered from you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I stole a card from.
He also stole his animals were like assaulting our zoo.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I think the little animals are more vicious,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
the big animals are like, well, I could get you a ton of points, and the little animals like, well, I could take all. of
Yeah.
them.
I didn't even mind the card one. It's just thematically it kind of breaks because it's like, why was your monkey in my zoo?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, my monkey likes to escape.
Yeah.
I can't keep hold of him.
But
Let's be honest.
I like the monkey did do that because I think we were discussing. There is a video of I think it's that same type of monkey steals a lady's purse and runs off
And
with
just
it.
runs with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like okay, I like the fact that it could do that.
Yeah.
It's just, it is.
I mean, that is a venomous snake. So.
yeah. Okay. It's just why was I in that enclosure?
Yeah. What actually?
How did I get bit?
Under the
Well,
same
it
thematic.
wasn't you. It was your entire zoo. Got
Yeah,
venom.
but Snake got in and bit everyone.
Pursuit says like there is a card there with in the deck. We didn't see it, but it's like a cobra, and its negative effect is.
What do you mean we didn't see all of these cards?
No, yeah,
We didn't see every one
We didn't
of these
actually
cards.
get halfway through the
So
deck.
there's a cobra that hypnotizes you.
And what it allows you to do is you can take someone else's action,
Okay.
which is
See, that's weird. It doesn't really fit with the rest of the game.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
But
like-
I do like.
I would like a game where the animals can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It just
It's-
feels like it doesn't belong
It's
in this
adding
one.
in that negative player interaction, right? That versus component to the
Yeah.
game that doesn't.
Which
it
is
doesn't have
less.
a lot of it. Yeah.
There's not a lot.
I
There's
can
a couple
understand.
cards we see.
Now there
like
is on the bottom of these actions. There's a solo mode for this
Yeah.
card, which is a what do you want to say? A nicer action or something
Yeah.
that only affects you, but it is designed for solo mode. And that came up, and I asked like, can we use that? I think by the rules, Tim, you were saying that you can't.
My understanding from the rules is that you
Yeah.
can't, but
But this
And-
could
and
be
to
a
be
very,
fair,
a very easy
workaround.
house rule that
Yeah.
you could put in
Yeah.
if you don't like.
And that
player
did
interaction.
pursue that. It looks like the other one has that as well.
It-
Yeah,
all
every
the
one of
alternate-
them
yeah.
has one because if you're playing solo, you don't have.
I
an
think
enemy
that would be a good idea. If you're playing with
Yeah.
these sorts of animals, just let the blue one be your.
Yeah.
If you
It's-
don't want any, take that.
And
Yeah.
some people don't like take that in their game.
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
and,
I like take that in games if that's the type of game it is.
yeah. And this
Yeah.
really isn't that type of game.
It's not that
so-
type of game, so it
Yeah.
felt out of place.
Yeah, and I do feel that because
Okay.
it
That
sometimes
said, I
But it's an
burned
easy
6
workaround.
coins from you, and I think that was fine by me.
Yeah, I burned 6 coins, and I had to readjust my turn orders.
Oh, the other thing too that should be mentioned is those tokens do come off the board at a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one way that you can kind of mitigate the attack
Yeah.
on yourself is you can just force a break
Yeah,
at that point and be
exactly.
like, okay, well, instead of just paying 4 money every turn, I'm just going to take this break 5 action.
Exactly, because those negative effects are obviously much stronger the earlier in the round. You know, if it happens here, it's like okay, well,
I draw some cards, I discard a card, and I'm
Yeah.
done.
And the poison goes away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I
If
heal
you're bit by a
myself.
snake, take a break.
Yep, if you're bit by a snake,
take a break.
Yeah. Okay, so last question. Tim, so your overall impressions of this game?
Fantastic. This has kind of slowly crept up to it might be my favorite game now. I'm not 100% certain, but it's definitely supplanted like other games that were in the same type of like crunchy Euro that I love. Like I definitely like this game more than Terraforming Mars now. And I think maybe if you'd asked me that like 8 months ago, I was like, oh, I do like Terraforming Mars. But now I just think this is a smoother experience. It's I love the thematic, and it's definitely mechanically a better game than Terraforming Mars for sure. The one thing that I really don't like, we didn't touch on, is that we were playing on these boards, and we could probably grab one, but the boards have two sides, each of them. There's a whole bunch of boards. So this is a symmetrical board where we're all playing under the same rules and conditions, but each one of them also has a more thematic board. They're asymmetrical powers. The bonuses that you get for your conservation actions are different, and even the bonus that you get here change. And I hate this. I really like playing with it. I like the wrinkle that it adds, but the problem that I have with this is these don't feel balanced to me at all. Some of these feel like outrageous.
Some just feel a lot stronger.
Yeah, there's one, for example, that if you're connected to one of the spaces, which you could just start there, it lets you completely ignore one of the requirements on an animal that you play, and that's just that's busted, because that's a huge part of it. So just being able to, for example, Bryant doesn't upgrade his cards, or he only has one predator. Okay, he just ignores it.
Yeah,
and that is
yeah.
really strong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do find some of these they do add like an interesting twist to the game. My problem with this, I don't feel that they're particularly well balanced.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually some of the upgrades are different too.
That's exactly
That's
right.
like everything's different.
Everything's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I normally like asymmetric powers or asymmetric starting points for players, but if it's not balanced, like you said, like that's tough. It's tough to play with, right?
I don't care about balance. To be honest, don't matter.
Yeah.
Brian is the true gamer for game's sake.
But how do you feel about it?
Yes, I actually really enjoyed it. So I would say, as far as Euros go, this is in my top tier Euros. So I'm normally more. Some people say Ameritrash or Amerithrash.
Yeah.
That's kind of more my genre, typically.
Yeah.
Because for me, a lot of Euros kind of feel very samey when we're playing them.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is definitely upper tier. And I love Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
But I think, like you were saying, I think I like this one better because it adds the little Tetris game.
Yeah.
So,
He just really likes Tetris.
Yeah. I didn't like Tetris by itself.
Yeah.
I like it like this.
And I'm of the three of us, I'm definitely the most.
But I did really enjoy it. Like I would
Tetris
recommend.
game. Yeah.
This is definitely something that if I had a friend who I knew was into Euros, I'd say, well, this is one I would say, yeah, you got to play this one.
Yeah. It's a good game. It's not going to be one of my top games of all time, but it's a good game. I honestly think like this deck mechanism just pulls so much away from me. Because it's all based on your cards. Like if you don't get the right cards, you have a tough time in this game. But maybe I've just been jaded by that mechanism too many times in the past, and I can't let it go. Yeah. But so it's not like top tier for me. It's not bottom tier. It's probably above average for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as games go, I like it better than a lot of the games. I'm looking around on my shelves. I'm like, yeah, I'd probably play that over this one or this one kind of thing. But yeah, no, it's an all right game for me. So
okay, excellent. So I guess you just have to, if you want to try this game or you want to purchase it or try to play it, just decide which one of us you agree with the most.
Yeah.
Who looks the smartest, and go with them. So, but
probably
overall,
not the one not wearing glasses.
none of us disliked this game. I think we all enjoyed this game to some level. So
it's worth playing.
I recommend it. I actually really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
I had a good time playing this.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you for joining us for this review, and we will see you next time. So have a great evening and good gaming. That's it. I was just pausing so we'd have time to fade. Oh no, we're supposed to keep talking, aren't we? He wants us to keep talking, so he has something to
so
fade
that
out.
He can put on videos so that people can click on them. It's like, hey, click on this video or this video.
Yeah. So we have to talk. We have to keep talking
Just keep talking.
stuff.
Well.
Yeah, I was able to collect a lot of bears, which I really appreciated in this game.
Yeah, I do really like that. Like
gaming, right?
Yeah, I love theme gaming. Like I'll put theme into a game if it's not there.
He just makes it up.
Yeah.